Hi, welcome back to Authors on the Air. I'm your host, James Latwell. We're part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. And we have with us today Meredith Lyons. Hi, Meredith.
Hello.
Meredith had a debut book that came out. I mean, and it just took on fire. I mean, I think it won 4 awards. Ben Franklin. I think there was an Ippy there. There was, the best book at Killer Nashville, the Silver Falcon for best paranormal mystery. I mean, this book just took off. And I was lucky enough to get a sneak peek, and I knew it was good, but I'm glad to see everybody else thought so too. So congratulations on that, Meredith.
Thank you. I was also glad to see that everyone else thought so.
Now, we're actually here to celebrate the paperback release of Ghost Tamer, which recently came out.
Mhm.
And for folks who haven't heard about Ghost Tamer yet, could you kind of tell them a little bit of what the story is?
Yeah, Ghost Tamer is about an aspiring comedian in Chicago. She is riding the L back from an open mic with her best friend when it flies off the rails, killing everyone except her. And now she can see ghosts. One of them says he's been with her all of her life, kind of trying to protect her, and another one is now trying to destroy her and take her soul, as you do.
As you do. Yeah, when I started reading this, and I was wondering, it almost came off as like a Sixth Sense kind of a thing. Where am I going to find out that Rayleigh's really dead at the end of this thing because she had this near death experience? But it's not that. This is very much fresh. And can you tell us? Rayleigh is such a great character. She starts off in this high stakes situation. Um, how did you come up with her as your protagonist in Ghost Tamer? Because she's really very unique.
Well, I wanted with Raely, I wanted someone who was grieving messily. I wanted her to be making mistakes and falling into all of her bad habits and bad choices, and still be capable of being loved and still be capable of being funny and and eventually be able to like claw her way out and be okay. Because I do think that there's so many books that where characters are grieving and whatever, and um, sometimes I've come across them where the grief is very quiet or graceful or whatever, but a lot of the times it's not like that, and it's different every time you grieve, every time you lose, it is different. And I wanted to show someone doing it badly. And I wanted to show those messy parts of it, but I didn't want her to be too unlikable while she was going through it.
Yeah, no, she's a great character, and I don't think it's giving too much away that she discovers there's this other world where ghosts exist. And she doesn't accept that at first,
No.
and she kind of struggles with it. Could you talk a little bit about her
Yeah.
experience
Well,
there?
I mean, she's obviously in survivor's guilt, deep in survivor's guilt because she lived and her friend did not. And so, as a normal person would, she wonders, am I going crazy? Did I manufacture this ghost that's following me around because I miss my friend? And he eventually presents evidence that this is not the case. But also, she doesn't want this to be her life. She wants to reverse back to a month ago when her friend was alive and everything was fine, and she didn't know about ghosts, didn't see them, and she was just trying to be a comedian. And so I think that's part of Rayleigh's character and her struggle in this book is that she denies all of this. She does not want to deal with her grief. She does not want to deal with some of the wounds in her past. And she does not want to have seen ghosts. So she does not accept it all at first. So the whole thing is a struggle from the beginning for her.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I appreciate about Ghost Tamer is even the ghosts have a personality in it is because you see a lot of books in this genre. They're kind of the ghosts are kind of flat and don't have any really depth to them. But these ghosts have personality, and one in particular isn't who she thought they were all along. Um, you, can you talk a little bit about that without giving up too much of the story?
About Casper. Um,
Yeah.
So Casper, yeah, Casper is her ghost that has been attached to her. He says for as long as he can remember, potentially as long as she's been alive, which of course she doesn't want to deal with. That freaks her out.
Right.
But he actually doesn't even remember or know where he came from. And he just knows that he's just been there and been trying to keep her on the right path. Sometimes she listens to him, sometimes she doesn't. She's very offended by this. Um, and so they bicker a lot. And, it was easier for him to guide her when she thought it was her own ideas that and she's offended that maybe she didn't have free will this whole time. So they clash a little bit, but ultimately are curious about each other, and she's curious about him, and he's always been interested in her. So they get along in a weird way. They have a shared interest of stopping this terrible ghost from coming after her, but they do eventually have to figure out why he's connected to her and why he's there. And as they start going through it, a lot of his own memories start coming back. And I don't want to give too much else
Right.
away.
No, no, I thought that was a nice little twist and surprise when you revealed that. So that was kind of fun to discover. But you've had a personal encounter with a ghost, haven't you?
I have. It's kind of fun to talk about. It's actually grown since I've told it. So when I was young, about 10, some early double digits, somewhere around there, I would wake up in the middle of the night, and my bed faced into the room, and I would see this girl walking up and down by the foot of my bed, and she was always talking, in full like flow. She was monologuing, she was trying to work something out, and I just listened to her. I could understand her. It was interesting. I don't remember any of what she said, but I would just listen to her. However, if I ever tried to comment on anything she said, she would stop, look at me, and then vanish. And I was just, and I go back to sleep. Never thought about it in the morning. And until one day I woke up and she was right by my bed, not at the end of it. And she was looking down at me and smiling hugely. She was so happy. And she said, "Goodbye." And I said, "Where are you going?" And she vanished. And I never saw her again. I remembered all the other times. And I tried to tell people about it. But when you're a kid and you say a ghost has been visiting you, no one believes you. You were dreaming, blah, blah, blah. And if you tell other kids, a ghost has suddenly been visiting them too, and they try and make it a better story. So I just stopped telling people until one day I was in my 20s, probably drunk, coming home from a bar with some friends, and for some reason told my friend this story. And she said, "Did she look like you?" And I was like, "I guess maybe a little," ready for her to tell me I was dreaming. And she said, "Did your mother have a miscarriage before you?" And I said, "Yeah, she did." And she said, "It was your sister coming to check on you." And so now I like to think that maybe when she said goodbye, she was going off to finally be born. But where it gets weird is I told this story at an event in Montgomery, Alabama, where my family lives, and my sister was in attendance. And my sister came up to me after the event and said, "That's not the ghost story I thought you were going to tell." And I said, "What ghost story did you think I was going to tell?" And she said, "Do you remember that man that used to come into your room?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." And she said, "You were around 14, 15, somewhere in there. And I remember you were sitting in the kitchen and you were really upset. And you were telling mama that this man kept coming into your room and staring at you, and you didn't like him, and you wanted him to go away. And mama said that you just had to be really firm with him and tell him he wasn't welcome and he needed to leave." And I was like, "Did it work?" And she said, "I guess. I mean, you never mentioned seeing him again." And I did not remember this. However,
Wow.
then later I'm on a TikTok scroll, and I'm on Ghost Talk, as you do, and I see a guy is telling a really good story. So I go into the comments and I see a mention of Hat Man. And if anyone hasn't heard of Hat Man, you can go on a rabbit hole about Hat Man. He's across cultures, across languages. Everyone describes him as the same. And when he comes to you, often you experience sleep paralysis, which I did often at that age. And sometimes you won't be able to breathe, which I used to get laryngospasms when I was very small, and then they stopped until that age. Hat Man is described as wearing a dark coat and a dark hat and appearing in rooms and staring at people, and people are very afraid. So now I wonder, did I repress this memory and then write him into Ghost Tamer as the bad ghost, the Jamani, who is described as having a dark coat and a dark hat, very menacing figure? Got goosebumps when I started looking at Hat Man.
Wow, that's amazing. I've heard you talk about, the girl that visited you, but yeah, the Hat Man piece. Yeah, I just got a little bit of chill while you were talking about that. So
Yeah, I was
wow,
like, that was just a couple months ago that that I made that connection. So that was kind of freaky.
huh. Do you think that girl was another sister?
You know what? It's really funny. I had a book club last night that did Ghost Tamer that I was at, and another girl there said the same exact thing happened to her. She woke up and
Wow,
a girl would be sitting on the edge of her bed, and she looked a little like her. She had the dark hair, and her mother also had a miscarriage before her. And apparently her mother was very woo-woo on the spectrum and said, and knew that the miscarriage was a girl.
wow,
So, so yeah, so it could have been. I mean, it hit right when she told me that. So,
wow. That's amazing. Now, you write, ghost stories, spirits, ghosts, demons, sprites, fairies, every, what draws you to this element? I mean, you do it very well because I don't read a lot of fantasy, but when I read yours, I just get sucked into that world that you create. So, um, yeah, you've got a knack of doing this. But what drove you there?
I don't, the short answer is I don't want to exist here. I have to exist on this plane all the time. And it's annoying. And I don't have any powers. And, I have to pay bills and do mundane things like eat my vegetables at and get 8 hours of sleep and all that boring stuff. And I just, wanted, I lived in my head a lot as a kid and just started putting it on paper at a certain point and sharing it with other people. Like I think my first book I wrote when I was 13. And when you're a kid and no one is telling you no, you start writing weird stuff and it's fun. And I just kind of kept doing it. And I kind of found that the weirder I got and the more like I'm sitting here writing stuff, like no one is going to be interested in this freaking battle unicorn. But, people love the weirder I got, the more people liked it. As long as it made sense to me in my world. Yeah. And it's super fun. I've tried. Ghost Tamer was going to be my attempt at a normal story with normal people. And then I just had to throw ghosts in there like it was compulsive.
I love I love that. That's great. Now, might we see more Rayleigh in the future?
I had an idea for a sequel. I stopped working on it because the hook wasn't work. The bad ghost, the villain wasn't working for me, and I didn't know who they were. And at the time, I just didn't want to shove out a sequel because there was interest in book one and make it be a bad sequel. And I had other stuff that I was working on and in the pipeline, so I just set it to the side. Um, and I'm working on other stuff now, but the short answer is maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's a
I
possibility.
love how we came around to that. Just maybe.
Maybe
Now,
someday.
yeah. Now you've got other stuff in the pipeline, and I understand that April 1st on April Fool's Day you have a release date for something coming up next. So can
Yeah,
you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah. It is not a joke. A dagger of lightning. I actually happen to have an arc up
Mm,
here. It's very beautiful. I'm very excited about the cover.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and it is, we call it a fantasy romance with a spaceship on top, because I'm not good at staying in genre lines. And it is about a 45-year-old, again, normal person on Earth, and she's dealing with normal 45-year-old woman things, which are very annoying if you're in that era. And she gets kidnapped by an alien prince and turned immortal, and he's decided she's gonna save his planet. She's the chosen one, and she's gonna fall in love with him. And she co-signs absolutely none of this, but can't get back to Earth, so kind of aligns with his more sane younger brother and tries to start figuring out her powers, which are growing by leaps and bounds. And once the higher ups find out what she can do and who she's related to, which is a surprise to her as well, everyone kind of wants a piece of her. And on Earth, she was kind of doing what was expected of her, getting along to get along, whether she really wanted to or not. And when she's in this world and she's in this position, she kind of has to learn to fight for herself, or she's going to get swept up and be nothing but a powerless tool in this war. But I really have a fun time with Imogen. She's a huge dork. There's a lot of playing with pop culture references that aliens do not understand. I wanted, no shade to the teenagers out there. Teenagers are great, but I wanted a fully adult chosen one.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted someone, because a lot of people my age read fantasy, and a lot of people older and younger, but I wanted someone who had experienced a lot of life and had a good sense of self, and had experienced their body beginning to fall apart a little bit before they got turned immortal. So they had some appreciation for it, rather than just plucked at their teenage years and then, merrily they roll along. So those were kind of my goals with Dagger of Lightning, as well as some commentary on the patriarchy, because that's fun for everyone.
Fun for everyone. No, that's fantastic. It sounds really good. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you were stuck with which would you prefer, to be stuck with a ghost or to be stuck in revisions?
Oh, it depends on the ghost. I'm going to be honest, I'm drafting right now and I can't wait for the revisions process. I feel like wherever you are, you wish you were at the other one. Like, sometimes you're revising and you're like, man, the magic of drafting is such a fun adventure. But right now I'm in drafting and this story is fighting me and I'm slogging through it. And I'm just like, man, I can't wait until this story is out there and I know what's going to happen. And then I can be revising. So I think I would probably, unless this is a magical freaking ghost, I think I'd probably be eternally in revisions.
I love it. Okay, so we're going to close out with something we call 3 quick hits.
Ooh.
And I want to put you in the head of Riley, your character Raely, and answer these three quick questions. What's your favorite drink, or what cocktail does she like?
She likes a Jack and Coke.
That fits. I can see that. How about music? What does Raely listen to?
Raely listens to like deep house vibes. She likes mixes. She likes loud things. She's very avoidant. So whenever Casper gets annoying, she plugs her headphones in and she turns on her, as she calls it, angry, frustrated workout playlist.
I love it. That's good. And finally, what is she most afraid of?
Ooh. I think that she's most afraid of her feelings. She's afraid to feel. She's hurt so bad that she's afraid to feel more. So she avoids it all.
Yeah, that sums her up very well. Folks, we've been talking with Meredith Lyons. Meredith is the author of Ghost Tamer. The paperback is out now. You're really going to want to check this out because it is a fun read, and it's nothing like you'd expect. So I think pick it up. You'll enjoy it. Meredith, thanks for spending some time with us.
Until mid-November, the audiobook is on sale for $1.99 on chirp.com.
Oh, very cool. Well, there you go. And Meredith, thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me. This is always fun to see you.
You take care. It's good to see you too.